Well, good morning, Journey Church. If you guys want to stand and worship with us. The atmosphere is changing now, for the Spirit of the Lord is here. The evidence is all around, for the Spirit of the Lord is here. The atmosphere is changing now, for the Spirit of the Lord is here. The evidence is all around, for the Spirit of the Lord is here. Overflow in this place. Fill our hearts with your love. Your love surrounds us. You're the reason we came to encounter your love. Your love surrounds us. The atmosphere is changing now, for the Spirit of the Lord is here. The evidence is all around, for the Spirit of the Lord is here. The atmosphere is changing now, for the Spirit of the Lord is here. The evidence is all around, for the Spirit of the Lord is here. Overflow in this place. Fill our hearts with your love. Your love surrounds us. You're the reason we came to encounter your love. Your love surrounds us. Overflow in this place. Fill our hearts with your love. Your love surrounds us. You're the reason we came to encounter your love. Your love surrounds us. Surrounded by your love, Jesus. We need your love. Oh. All right, church, this morning, I want you guys to make this your anthem and sing this as loud as you can. Spirit of God, fall fresh on us. We need your presence. Your kingdom come, your will be done here rise in heaven. The Spirit of God fall fresh on us. We need your presence. Your kingdom come, your will be done. Here as in heaven. Spirit of God, fall fresh on us. We need your presence. Your kingdom come, your will be done. Here as in Sweep through this place alone. Sweep through this place alone. We're ready for you, Lord. We're ready for you, Lord. We're crying out, Lord. We're crying out, Lord. We need your love. We need your love. A miracle can happen now. For the Spirit of the Lord is here. The evidence is all around. For the Spirit of the Lord is here. A miracle can happen now. For the Spirit of the Lord is here. The evidence is all around. For the Spirit of the Lord is here.
There is not a man nor a beast, nothing on the land or underneath, oh, nothing that could ever come between the love you have for me. I could lay my head in Sheol, I could make my bed at the bottom of the darkness deep, oh, but there is not a place I could escape you. Your heart won't stop coming after me. Your heart won't stop coming after me. Your heart won't stop coming after me. There is not an angel of the stars. There is not a devil in the dark. Oh, nothing that could change the way you are, the love you have for me. I could lay my head in Sheol, I could make my bed at the bottom of the darkness deep. Oh, but there is not a place I could escape you. Your heart won't stop coming after me. Your heart won't stop coming after me. Your heart won't stop coming after me. Good morning, Journey. If you would, turn around, shake someone's hand, give them a high five or a hug, and tell them that you're glad to see them this morning. Good job, guys.
Good morning, Journey. Now, let's check to see, are you guys pumped, psyched, motivated, ready to go? Okay, a few of you are. The rest of you are saying, what did he just say? Well, we're glad you're here. Glad the Lord gave you safety and strength to be able to be here. And I hope that as a result of us being together and worshiping the Lord, and also seeing what he has for us from his word, that you will leave here changed, that you will leave here encouraged, but most importantly, you'll leave here obedient. Just want to kind of give you a couple updates on things that's been going on. Thank you for those that participated in our Love Through Laundry outreach. Many good conversations were had and people encouraged, and so thank you for participating in that. And if you say, well, I meant to get involved but just couldn't work it out, remember something you can do on your own. What a great way to take your family, get some quarters, get some laundry detergent, and go to a laundromat and just look for people to be a blessing to. And the ones that actually went out found out that people will open up and talk to you even if they don't want anything from you. Sometimes they'll say, I don't need the detergent, I'm good. I just needed somebody to talk to. And so it's a great way to give hope. It's a great way to show the love of Christ, so thank you for that. Second of all, out in the lobby, we have something special for teachers. How many teachers do we have here today? Raise your hand, teachers. All right, great. Teachers, we want you to know we love you and appreciate what you do. Parents, if you have kids in school, you should look at the people that just raised their hands and say this: thank you. For some of us, it's a struggle to deal with our kids for a couple hours. Imagine for 8 hours every day. So we appreciate our teachers. And teachers, when you leave today, out in the lobby, we have a special gift for you, just to let you know that we appreciate you, but also that we're praying for you and want to help be an encouragement to you. So teachers, make sure that you pick that gift up. Well, we've been doing a series entitled Love Above All. And it's something that that's a pretty strong title, Love Above All. And I don't know about you, but there are other things that come to my mind when I think of love above all. Well, what about faith? Well, what about hope? Well, what about, miracles and gifts and signs? And wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be what we would need? But I think as you are seeing, as God is developing this in our lives, that when we truly understand what love is, then it reveals things in our hearts. And it reveals areas where maybe we're not as loving as we thought we were. And remember, we started out, the first part was the source of love. And we discovered that the source of love is who? God. You say, well, Randy, that was not very hard. Yeah, but in our lives, we often look to other people for that source. Husbands, wives, it's easy to look at each other for that love. It's easy to look and be like, well, I need you to be my source of love, and we cannot. Sometimes we look at our kids, and when our kids don't love us like we think they should, especially when they get older and they move out and they go hang out with their friends and would rather be there than at home, we kind of sit back as parents and kind of pout a little bit and go, well, I thought they would give us more love. God is the only source for love. He's not one of the sources, He's the only source. And when we understand that, that allows us to look to Him. But then last week, we looked at the 4 styles of love. And let's see, this is a little quiz. Since we're honoring our teachers, I'm going to give you a quiz, right? There were the 4 styles of love. The first one was what? Eros, right? Second one was? Right? Storge, good. That's one that's often hard to remember, Storge. Third one was what? Phileo. And the fourth one was? Agape. Somewhere back there is the teacher's pet, because, man, she's hauling out the names great and clear. You have the 4 styles of love. Now, why is that so important? Because a lot of times we get stuck loving the person on the wrong level. And sometimes we think, well, they're my brother or they're my son or my daughter. And so we get stuck on storge love. And we say, well, that's good. But no, there's a deeper love. And we all ought to be heading towards agape love, for that is God's love. And when we understand that agape love takes all of the other loves and brings them together and binds them, then it's like, wow, love gets unleashed in our life. And church, what I want you to understand today, and please take this and meditate on it for a second. I want you to think very clearly, as we just celebrated Valentine's Day, I want you to stop and think and look in your own life and say this: when I learn to love agape, my life will be changed. When I learn to love agape, when I learn to love like God loves, my life will be changed. And not only will my life be changed, because when my life gets changed, then it's going to affect my wife. It's going to affect my family. It's going to affect my friends. It's going to affect my coworkers. It's going to affect my church. What we're looking at today is a very powerful element of love, because most of us see love as makes sense to our flesh. So I want to give you this statement. For those of you that are taking notes, write this down. The rest of you, put it away mentally. Agape love has no room for flesh. If we try to bring what makes sense to us, if we try to bring what's convenient for us and say, well, I'm going to bring that to agape love, we just ruined it. Jesus said, a little leaven leavens the whole lump. If we come and take this beautiful love that God has shown to us and we say, yeah, but here's where I feel comfortable with that, we just messed it up. We just made a mess of what it is. And like for me, if you came and said, hey, want you to know we appreciate you and got you some nice chocolate. Well, I'm not a big fan of chocolate, but it's okay. And you said, but I put caramel in it. Now, I love caramel, so now we're good. And you said, but I put just a few little sprigs of coconut on top. Well, just keep it. I don't want it. You say, well, the coconut's not that big of a part. But to my taste buds, you just ruined the whole thing. That's what happens when we bring our flesh into our view of love, is we ruin the whole thing. So I want us to look at 1 Corinthians 13, and the message today is on the specifics of love, agape. We're not talking eros, we're not talking storge, we're not talking phileo, we're talking agape. What are the specifics? Well, why do we need specifics? Because we're not the source. We don't know what that's supposed to look like. So therefore, God gives to us what that love is like. So since agape is not natural for us, God must teach us how His love works. Notice that this love demonstrates these attributes all the time. First one we're going to look at in just a second is love is patient. Okay? That doesn't mean that as long as you're patient 80% of the time, you're okay. No, you have to be patient all the time. You say, Rand, there's no way that's going to happen. But that should be our goal. That should be what we strive to do. That we're not just patient every so often, but that we're patient the whole time. But before God gives us what His love is, He shows us the significance of His love. He shows us that agape love is greater than all. Agape love is above all. Look what he says in 1 Corinthians 13:1. He says this, if I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, wouldn't it be great if you could hear somebody speak Spanish and you could speak back to them in Spanish? They do it in German, no problem. Russian, no problem. That'd be great. We'd say, you are a brilliant person. Paul goes a little bit further. He says, if I could speak with the languages of men and of angels. Now, folks, let's just be honest. Wouldn't that be awesome? If we sit there and go, man, that would be great. But notice what he goes on to say. And have not love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. Now, I don't know how many Andy Griffith fans there are, but there's a episode where they're going to have a band, and Barney wants to be part of the band. And, you know, we all know he's not very musical. So he goes out and buys these cymbals. And he says, please, let me be part of the band. No. He said, listen, I even bought my own cymbals, paid the extra $1.25 and got the leather straps. So Andy goes, no, Barney, no. So he starts doing some work. Barney goes out and gets the cymbals, and he brings them back in. And he winds up real big, and he brings them together, and Andy jumps. He goes, isn't that great? Andy's all shaken up. And then he just starts going and taking the cymbals and just clang, 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 clang. And if you're watching that episode, you're like, man, please stop. Now, if we had any of our drummers back here, and all they did during the whole service, it just kept hitting that cymbal, would you sit there and go, man, that was a blessing to my heart? No, you'd be like, okay, we got the idea. Please stop. Please stop. That's what Paul says. If I could get up and speak with the tongues of men and of angels, but if I didn't have love, I would be as that annoying sound. But lest we think, well, it's not that bad, look at verse 2. Verse 2 says this, and if I have prophetic powers, I can see into the future, I can declare great truth and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, that I'm the wisest person you've ever met, Paul said. And if I have all faith so as to remove mountains and have not love, what does he say? I am what, church? Nothing. I am nothing. Just imagine if for the service today I said this, guys, I want to show you the faith that I have. I'm going to move the entire front row up to the stage. And all of a sudden, I began to meditate and pray, and all of a sudden, the row comes up to the stage. Would you guys be pretty impressed? You'd be like, uh-oh, he's got the power of God. We better be listening to this guy. Paul said, if I could say to a mountain, not just a row of chairs, to a mountain, move, and I don't have love, Paul says, under inspiration of the Spirit of God, I am nothing. Church, don't miss that. We're focused on the works. We're focused on the signs. We're focused on the power. And what God is saying to us is, before any of that, there must be love. And if you don't, you are nothing. See, man, that's a pretty harsh word. Because remember what we looked at when we looked at that God is the source of love, that he says, if you do not love, then you do not know me. If you are not showing agape love, then you don't know me. But in case we miss that, he goes on to the third verse, and he says this, and if I give away all that I have, and if I deliver up my body to be burned, but have not love, listen what he says, church, I gain nothing. I gain nothing. It is of absolute waste of time and value. Now, church, I don't know about you, but that gets my attention. That reaches out and kind of gets my eyes and opens them up and says, okay, Randy, you got to pay attention here. Because let's face it, church, many times we're often focused on, well, I do this, I do that, I don't do this. But he's saying this, where is your agape love? For the love that was shown to us must be demonstrated in our life to others. It's pretty powerful. Look at this thought. Isn't it amazing that we think tongues, prophecy, faith, etc. are the best, but they are actually the product of love. Without love, they are simply empty acts. So, church, what's the solution? What does God want for us? He wants us to know, and not just know in our head, but to penetrate, to filter down to our heart what agape love is. What does it look like? Because again, we're not the source, so we don't know. We don't know what that's like. We have to be able to go to the source and say, what makes up this love? Well, God's going to teach us. I hope you're ready to learn. The first thing that agape love is, remember I said this earlier, this is stuff that's shown all the time, not just periodically. Agape love is patient all the time. Now, folks, I could stop here and have an altar call. Because don't you struggle with patience? Because in our flesh, we know what we want. We know when it has to be done. And anything that doesn't go according to that plan just will not suffice. Kathy and I were going to see Anna the other weekend. And we were going down 64 through Mocksville. There was a section that we were in that was 40 miles an hour. Car in front of us was going 20 miles an hour. I was patient. Not. I was sitting there, my fingers started strumming the steering wheel. What's going on? Guy goes, it's okay, it's okay. I said, at this rate, we'll never get to see Anna's concert. And then things changed. He stopped going 20 miles an hour and started going 15. And it was like, ugh. And I wish I could tell you that I exhibited patience in that process. But my wife's here to show the other truth, and that's not the truth. Isn't it amazing the things that we get impatient about? When you're in the drive-thru and it doesn't go as quickly as you think it should. When you're at work and the process isn't going as quickly as we think it should. And pretty soon we get so impatient that old flesh comes out, and we start getting angry, and our tongue starts going, and we start rattling things to people, and it just becomes a mess. Have you ever felt better about yourself when you got impatient? When you look back and go, man, I can't believe I got upset about that. Because agape love is patient. Because, folks, let me tell you, God is patient with us. And because He is patient with us, He says, I want you to be patient with others. But God, no, there's no but God there. Because you see, folks, I have to come to realize it's not about my kingdom. It's not about my timing. It's not about what is convenient for me. God has a purpose and a plan. God has a desire for us. And sometimes there are things that come into our life that interfere with what we want to do, with how we want to go. And therefore, we say, that is a sin against me. How dare you go that slow? How dare you act that way? And God says, just as I am patient with you, so I want you to be patient with others. How often? All the time. But that's hard, yeah. One thing you're going to see about agape love, it's hard. Agape love is not easy. As you go up from eros to storge to phileo to agape, you increase in difficulty. And agape especially because you have to truly crucify the flesh in order to follow it. So it's not easy. In fact, folks, it was so hard that it caused Jesus to have to leave heaven to come to earth, to go to Calvary, to be crucified, to pay for our sin. That's how hard it is. But isn't it a beautiful picture? And aren't you glad He did? But it's not just that it is patient, but love is also kind. Now, one thing I've noticed in my life is when I yield to God and allow the patience to come, I'm a whole lot kinder. I'm not as frustrated. I'm not as, hey, get out of the way, or hey, you need to do it this way. There have been times that I've been out. If you've ever been out Black Friday shopping, you know kindness and patience are not often exhibited at that time. But guess what? There's nothing out there I want. So when I go, I'm there holding the door. People are like, but you're out here at 5:30 in the morning. Listen, my wife and I are just out here for a psychological experience. Go on in. You talk about blowing with their mind, they're like, what? You see, whenever you're not impatient, it opens the door to being kind. Because it's not about what I'm trying to accomplish. It's not about what I'm trying to do. So love is patient and it's kind. One of the things I often hear between couples when the problems start is we stopped being kind. We started being sarcastic with each other. We started being snippety with each other. When that happens, a flag got to go up. We're loving wrong. We're not loving as God loves us. We're loving as I want it, as I see it. Because love is always kind. But love always rejoices in truth. Love always rejoices in truth. Isn't that kind of a strange characteristic for love? But you see, whenever you truly love someone, you will tell them the truth. You won't exaggerate it. You won't tell it how it best fits your scenario. You will tell them the truth. You will tell them when you're struggling. You will tell them when there's a problem. You will tell them because love rejoices in truth. You see, many times we have to tell lies. Now, we come up with a way to make it not so bad, right? We call them white lies. That's not as bad, right? And when we tell white lies, it's just to help because we don't want to hurt the other person, but really what we're doing is we're trying to make it easier on ourselves. And when we speak the truth, Even though sometimes it is hard to hear, it helps the other person that you are loving to know you're not hiding anything. You're not keeping anything back. You love them so much that you give them truth. What did Jesus say in John 14:6? I am the way, the truth, and the life. We've gotten so used to exaggerating that sometimes we don't know how to handle truth. For those of you that do social media, you ever go and edit your pictures so that you look better than you really are? Hear all that laughter? Guilty people. Right? Because, you know, when we're like with Ann or whatever, and we'll take a picture, I'm like, it is what it is. You can't change what the picture captured what it is. Kathy and Ann will always be like, let me look and see if that's a good picture. Well, let's change the different angle. Let's change this, right? So you kind of change how you look. But we try to do that in our lives and say, well, I'm not that bad. Well, I'm okay. Well, it's not really my... No, to come to truth, to live in truth so you aren't deceived. And then when you aren't deceived, you don't want others to be deceived. So love always rejoices in the truth. Aren't you glad that's true of Jesus? Could you imagine Jesus saying, if you'll believe on me with your mouth and in your heart, you will be saved. Oh, thank you, Lord. We die and we go to heaven. He says, depart from me, I never knew you. You said, but Lord, you said this. Well, no, there's other stuff, but I thought it hurt your feelings if I told you. I'm so thankful that when I read His Word, it's truth. I don't always like to hear it, but it changes me because it's truth. But then it says, love bears all things. And I love this, but notice this first of all. It doesn't say love is a bear. If that's the case, some of us, we are great at loving. But it's not what it says. Love bears all things. What does this mean to bear? Picture that there is a road, and people are traveling on that road. And you notice that that road that everybody is traveling on is being held up by a pylon. Now that pylon is standing there, and it's bearing all the pressure that's coming down from all of those vehicles driving across it, and it's sitting there going, it's okay to travel across. I'm bearing the burden. I'm bearing the weight. Now we picture this to love. Husbands, in your home, with your wife, with your kids, you need to be the one that sits there and says, I got you. Kids, even when you don't understand, even when you might say those words, Dad, I hate you, you don't sit there and go, fine, I'll walk away. No, you sit there and go, it's okay, I got you. When your wife says, I don't know why I ever married you, it's okay, honey, I got you. Now, I'm holding my hands like this for a reason. Because there was a man named Jesus, the Son of God, that went to Calvary, and his hands were out like this. Humanity said, we hate you. Humanity said, we wish you'd never been born. Humanity said, we're going to kill you. And they spat upon him. They ridiculed him. And he said, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they do. Agape love bears all things. And husbands, dads, wives, moms, children, friends, when Jesus is doing that for us, how can we say to those that we are called to love, I can't take it anymore. I can't love you anymore. Therefore, I just got to walk away. Can you see how the enemy wants to use that? Because if you take the pylon out, then it affects everybody traveling that road. And my friend, every single one of you have multiple, not just one, have multiple people that are impacted by your love or by your lack of love. And you can't sit there and go, well, I love you because, man, you love me right back. This is great. You bought me a great gift for Valentine's Day. Yeah, I love you. Love is hard. It's not easy to bear all things. It's easy to say, had enough. I can't take any more. But to be able to stand and say, no, I bear all things. But it doesn't just say bears all things. True love believes all things. Do you honestly believe that God can change people? Do you? Good. Thank you for answering back there. Then why do you give up on people? If you believe God can change people, then why do we give up? Why do we quit and say, you know what, just forget it? No, I believe God can change people. He can save people. He can heal people. He can restore marriages. He can renew families. He can do the impossible. So if I believe that, then why would I quit loving? Why would I not go one more time to share the gospel with someone? Why would I not go and say, hey, let me just show you that love one more time? I was talking with a guy a couple years ago. Happened a couple weeks ago as well. I've had several conversations like this. It goes something like this. Hey, what do you do for a living? I'm a preacher. Oh. I don't like preachers. I said, it's okay, I don't either. And really? Yeah. I love the one who's called me to preach, but if you just look at me, you're going to be sorely disappointed. I'd rather you look at the one that I'm preaching about rather than the vessel he's using. Oh, okay, there goes that spiritual stuff. And so he continues on the conversation, and he says, you know what, this church I was at, and he starts talking about that pastor, and he starts talking about that preacher. And he said, I'm just going to be blunt. I wish people like you would just die. I said, me too. What? I said, because absent from the body is present with the Lord. You're wanting to send me to be with Jesus. I'm okay with that. He goes, you're not getting the point. I don't like you. And I said, it's okay. Because I know there are people that have misrepresented God and not shown you His love and shown you what He came to do for you. But I just want you to know that no matter how hard you kick against Him, He loves you till the day you die. And at any point, sir, if you will call out to Jesus Christ and ask Him to save you, guess what my God will do? He'll save you. That's how much He loves you. Now, church, no doubt there are some people in your life that maybe have told you they don't love you. Maybe they told you they wish you were dead. And you took that and you said, well, fine, I don't have to take that, and you walked away. If I believe God can change them, then I'm going to stand there and bear it because I want them to see Christ in me. Do you see that? We only want to show love to people that show it back. Jesus said, I want you to show it like I did, even when people spat back, even when people crucified me. But it's not just that love bears all things, believes all things, it hopes all things. It hopes all things. Because you see, with Christ we have hope. Without Christ we have no hope. With Him, all things are possible. So, in fact, the Scriptures tell us that it is a blessed hope. And what happens is sometimes in our families, we make some bad decisions, some bad choices, and it looks like there's no hope in our homes. Maybe debt is too great. Maybe health issues are too vast. And we say, you know, I just don't have any hope. My friend, if you have agape love, you have hope. The enemy wants you to think that you don't, but you do, because you have God. Not in yourself, but in Him. So love hopes all things. And then because of those three, it ends with, and love endures all things. Endures all things. Because to my bearing, to my believing, to my hoping, I have to have endurance. It can't be, okay, I'll give you till tomorrow. I'll give you till next week. No, I'll give you until I have no more time to give. I'll give you until I'm in His presence. Now let me ask you, is that the love that's often pictured? Is that the love that when we say we love each other, are you willing to love to that extent? Or is there a limit? But there's something I want you to see about verse 7. Verse 7 uses a literary tool that kind of gives us a hidden truth. Verse 7 uses a poetical style called ABBA. Now, for those, if there are any English people in here, you're sitting there going, oh, this is good stuff. The rest of you are going, what do I need to know about this? Stay with me. I want you to see this truth. In that ABBA pattern, God tells us that after we experience His love through us, we can call Him Abba, Father. What's the ABBA pattern? A starts off by saying that His love, or God's love, bears all things, right? Then you go down to the endures all things. Those things are the same idea said differently to show the whole scope. They work together. Those are your two A's. The two B's in between is where it says it believes all things, it hopes all things. Same concept, but brings it together to show the whole picture. Why is that so significant? Because, folks, I'm here to tell you that when I became a dad and I looked at my little girl, you talk about love, that's love. I would lay down my life for my daughter. I would do anything to help my daughter. And because my daughter is a daddy's girl, we have a great, tight relationship where it gives her security to know that when she needs me, I'm there. And God says to us, who once were enemies of His, who once took and crucified His Son, He says, if you will trust me, if you will love me with all of your heart, if you will confess your sin, He says, then I am your Abba Father, your daddy. Church, I don't want you to miss how much God loves you. And it's not a superficial love. It's not a selfish love. It's not a love when only everything's going well. It's a love like no other. If these 7 things, and 7 being the number of perfection, if these 7 things are not consistently being shown by you, then guess what? You are not showing agape love. So there's confession that needs to be done. There's bearing that needs to be done. There's patience that needs to be done. There's kindness that needs to be done. Do you see what I'm saying? If we're not doing it consistently, if we're doing it 50% of the time, 60%, whatever, then we're not truly loving agape. And when we learn it, it transforms us. But if you're not showing that agape love, then here's what happens in your life. See if this maybe describes you. If you're not doing these things, it says you will be frustrated by other people's responses to you. The more frustrated you are, the lower down the love chart you go, and the more shallow your love. So, if I'm not loving my wife as God loves me, if I get frustrated with her and I say, you know what, I'm tired of her, I drop from agape down to phileo. Now remember, phileo, as we talked about last week, is the highest form of love that we as humanity can show. But it still involves flesh, still involves self. But and you hear people say this, I just feel like we're good friends living together. That's phileo love. You're just friends. But then it continues to deteriorate because the heart's not changed, the love's not changed, and then it goes down even further to storge love. Now, yeah, that's my wife. She's a, yeah, that's my husband. But we don't even really like each other. We just recognize that. And then pretty soon, I don't love her. She doesn't love me. How did that change? Because we stopped seeking the love that God showed to us, and we got our flesh mixed back in. And now I am frustrated. Now I'm sitting there going, well, if she would just change, if she would just do this, if she would. See, that's flesh. In church, is it any wonder that people have a hard time seeing the love of God? Because we stopped pursuing it and we've become content with the others. But he doesn't just show us what agape love is, he has to show us what agape love is not. Because I guarantee there are things that we think are okay. Things that we think are, I'm a loving person, this is okay, this is acceptable. He says, let me tell you what agape love is not. Agape love does not envy. Your best friend comes up to you, hey, you're not going to believe what happened to me the other day. Hey, what happened? I got a promotion at work. I'm making $5 more an hour. Outwardly, you're like, oh, great. But inwardly, you're like, I deserve that. I don't get appreciated at work. Why didn't I get a raise? You ever done that? Because you see, our flesh rises up and goes, hey, what about you? What about you? We envy what other people have. Somebody pulls up in your neighborhood, your neighbor right next door pulls up in a new vehicle. Wish I could afford a new vehicle. So that we don't feel bad about ourselves, we start to rationalize. Well, I bet they're farther in debt than I am. Is that loving? Not only does true love not envy, not only does agape love not look at our own, but it doesn't do this. Agape love does not boast. Look at how this shows, folks. Envy is when somebody got something you didn't that you thought you deserved. Boasting is when you thought you got what you deserved. So we'll flip that around. You go up to your friend and go, hey, got a raise at work the other day. They realized how good of an employee I am. I'm awesome. They're lucky to have me. So you see, it takes both ends of the spectrum and removes it and goes, listen, all that I have and all that I am is because of the goodness of God. I was at Chapel Hill Hospital this past week visiting with someone, and I was walking by, and I was having a little problem with my foot, and so it was kind of painful to walk a little bit, and I was just sitting there. You know, we all have those days where we're like, man, I wish my foot wouldn't hurt. And I walked by, they're doing some construction down there, so they kind of reroute how you go in, and I had to go through the women's hospital lobby. And there was a lady sitting out there, one leg on the floor, one leg not, because it had been amputated. I looked at that and I said, God, forgive me for complaining about a little bit of pain in my foot. You see, there are things that happen that we cannot explain. things that people go through. And we can't sit there and go, well, they must have deserved that. They had it coming. Folks, God works in mysterious ways. We don't understand everything of why he does it because we're not God. So when we just rest in who he is, then we stop